Welcome to Your Two Cents, where we tell you our opinion, then ask for yours. This week, Samsung announced their latest flagship phone, the Samsung Galaxy S5, and it's something. This series of phones arguably have been called Android's answer to the iPhone, but does the new S5 live up to that hype? Further, what does it even mean to be a flagship Android phone these days? What about you guys? What do you want to see in a flagship Android phone? And does the S5, 5S, S5, S5, I'll get there. Does it tick any of those boxes? Lewis, why don't you start?
This is confusing, right? S5, 5S.
Yeah.
So a flagship phone for me personally, for a flagship Android phone, I'd like, as close to stock Android as possible. Which, from what it sounds like, it seems like Samsung's really going in that kind of like really simplified kind of like Android kind of like OS. Decent, really good battery life, which very few phones have these days outside of the Droid Max series. A relatively big screen, not humongous, but just like a good, sharp, large screen, and I would say a couple of features that really make it stand out. Something like a built-in heart rate monitor, which the Galaxy has now. I mean, that's pretty awesome, I think.
Yeah, how important are like gimmicky things like that to a flagship phone, or should a flagship phone be like just solid specs? Like everything else you mentioned is essentially like the fastest CPU, the largest screen, the brightest colors, and that.
I think we've hit that point where like smartphones can't evolve that much more. I mean, like, what are you going to get? An 8-core processor in your smartphone? I think hardware-wise, we've all hit like a good, like even the iPhone 5S to some extent, it was really not that big of an improvement over the 5 or whatnot. So you're seeing that now with the Samsung. So they said, like, all right, you know what? Let's start doing some sort of like health kind of stuff in it. Let's integrate health apps.
Yeah.
Let's integrate a heart rate monitor, a fingerprint sensor in it, and see how people react to that.
Yeah, it's interesting that a flagship phone can no longer honestly focus on just the base specs, because like you said, we kind of are, not that we've maxed out where we could go, but phones are just all kind of running at a similar type of level, and like a slightly faster CPU, slightly more memory isn't changing so much about the appeal of the phone. Like, you can't have a commercial on TV and say, now with the 1.5 gigahertz processor, and have people go, ooh, You have to say like a heart rate monitor, and it's those kind of gimmicks, I think, that maybe put a phone into the flagship, but it can't just be all gimmicks either, right?
Right.
Dan, what are your opinions on that matter?
Well, here's the thing. I was reading over all the specs of the new Galaxy S5, and I think for me, when I was thinking over like what would I want, like if I could build the perfect Android phone, and what would be my flagship model, I think I broke it down into about 4 things. I mean, the first one, obviously, for me, is to have ultra fast bandwidth. Like if I could have super fast internet connection, that would be awesome.
Right. And that's again one of those things that have kind of maxed out, or so we thought, because the S5 is now doing that thing where they use your wireless in conjunction with 4G, right?
Right.
To get like super fast. So there you go. That's something that you want. It ticks that box. What are the other 3 things on your list?
Yeah. Well, the other 3 thing, I would like to see somebody somewhere, and I'm sure we'll get there at some point. But for a flagship phone, I'd love to see 1 terabyte of space inside.
That's a lot.
That's a lot. But,
not cloud, right? You're not talking cloud.
Not cloud.
space.
No. I'm talking
Actual.
1 terabyte in the phone, because I think the way we're headed with at least with the Android phone, it's kind of going to be the, dare I say, like the handheld Windows PC. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
It's like,
you want it to be like functioning like desktop. But
yes, I want it to be. I want it to be a.
I mean, they're getting up to the speeds of. I mean, you think quad
kinda.
core. Well, I mean, they have like quad cores in them now and stuff. Like, you hook that up to a screen, and it's not that far off of a low end PC, But I think cloud storage will probably take care of most of that for you.
Maybe, but then again, it comes back to the bandwidth question, because I really don't want to wait. Like when I hit Chrome on my Android phone, it takes a few moments for it to warm up and get to where it needs to go, and it's like that's why I love my desktop. Click, boom, I'm there. I think that's going to be the natural evolution of the phone, and that's one of the things that I would build into a flagship. I would get the fastest bandwidth available anywhere, not just hooked up to my wireless system and use it like a shotgun type of deal. That I don't really care about heart monitors. I don't even know if my heart's still beating or not anyway.
Right.
So
Yeah, I mean it is, but I mean I guess it's that gimmick. Is it going to come down to like all the flagship phones across all different models or makers are going to be essentially spec similar, but then one's going to have a heart rate monitor, and like the S5, is it going to be waterproof? And then this other one's going to have a 41 megapixel camera. Are we going to be basing it on those specific things? So like, is it going to be that we're offered 5 phones and each have that one different flagship weird gimmick spec, and we vote on what we want, so that the next generation makes that gimmick spec the regular, and then we vote on a new series. So we're slowly adding these gimmicks that we want based on our dollar votes that we pay for these.
Yeah, but I mean, didn't we talk about who was it who was making that phone? Like it was, what was it, 6 months ago? We talked about it, where it was basically in blocks, where you can pull out, get a bigger battery if you want. You can put in a bigger camera, a bigger CPU, whatever it was. I think.
Sure.
I don't know. I don't know if anyone would ever do that, like with an Android phone, like a mass producer like Samsung, because I think that would kill their market.
Right. Until someone does that too, like we're gonna have to put up with this version where it's like they're all kind of similar except for one thing. We buy that one thing that then becomes standard. Like I'm thinking that heart rate monitors are probably going to become standard, especially because the rumor is that Apple is going to put one in their iPhone 6, and that just means that everyone
is going to follow suit, right?
Yeah.
Which leads me to my cynical answer to this question: is that a flagship Android phone is supposed to have every feature that an iPhone has or is rumored to have. The iPhone 6 is rumored to have a heart rate monitor. Therefore, Samsung threw it into this one in the hopes that they're already going to be competing with something that's about to come out.
Right.
But that's our 2 cents. What's yours, viewer? Tell us if you think. Tell us what you think a flagship phone should be, and if the Galaxy S5 is one. Leave that in the comments below. For DealNews.com, along with Luis Ramirez and Dan Ledbetter, I'm Jeff Summergy. Goodbye.